December 26, 1996. Boulder, Colorado. The day after Christmas. Snow gently covered the quiet suburban streets. But inside one house, horror had struck. Just before 6 a.m., John and Patsy Ramsey made a panicked 911 call. Their 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet, was missing. A ransom note had been left behind. And within hours, the home became the center of one of the most haunting murder cases in American history. This is the story of JonBenét Ramsey, the pageant princess whose tragic death exposed a maze of secrets, lies, and chilling possibilities. JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990. Blonde, bright-eyed, and full of life. By the time she was 6, she had already won numerous beauty pageants. Little Miss Colorado, National Tiny Miss Beauty, and more. To many, she was the image of a living doll. A child dressed in glitter, makeup, and adult-like poses. Critics called it exploitation. Her family called it pride. She lived with her parents, John and Patsy, and her older brother, Burke. A wealthy church-going family, well known in their community. Their house? A 7,000-square-foot mansion in Boulder. On the outside, perfect. Inside? That Christmas would reveal something far more sinister. The first bizarre detail? The ransom note. Patsy said she found it on the staircase as she headed downstairs early that morning. It was handwritten, 3 pages long. Unusual, rambling, and oddly specific. It demanded $118,000 for JonBenet's safe return, the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus that year. The note called the kidnappers a small foreign faction. It warned, do not contact the police. It signed off, Victory. SBC. To this day, no one knows what that means. But there was something even stranger. Police later concluded that the note was likely written inside the house, using pen and paper from the Ramseys' own kitchen. Who would take the time to write a long ransom note inside the home after kidnapping a child? Unless the child was never taken at all. For hours, police treated it as a kidnapping. The house wasn't sealed off. Friends and neighbors came and went. Evidence was trampled. Critical mistakes were made. Then around 1 p.m., Detective Linda Arndt asked John Ramsey to search the house. He went straight to the basement. And there, he found his daughter's body. JonBenet was lying on the cold concrete floor. Her hands were bound above her head, mouth duct-taped, a nylon cord around her neck, a garrote made from one of her mother's paintbrushes. She had been strangled, but the autopsy would reveal something worse. She had also suffered a blow to the head, severe enough to cause unconsciousness or death. The official cause? Asphyxiation by strangulation with a massive head trauma. She had not been kidnapped. She had been murdered inside her own home. Investigators quickly realized there were no signs of forced entry. The doors were locked. The windows were undisturbed except for one in the basement. But even that appeared too small for anyone to enter through. The family said they had slept through the night. No barking dogs. No alarms. No witnesses. And yet a child had been killed, with her body hidden in a part of the house. No one had checked for hours. It didn't add up. So police began to consider an uncomfortable theory. What if someone inside the house had committed the crime? 3 people were in the house that night. John, Patsy, and Burke Ramsey, JonBenet's 9-year-old brother. Theories started swirling. Some believed John had harmed JonBenet, either in a rage or to cover something up. Others pointed to Patsy, especially given the ransom note was written on her notepad and matched her handwriting according to some experts. Then came the theory about Burke. Could a child kill his own sister? One version suggests JonBenet may have taken Burke's pineapple late at night, leading to a sudden burst of anger, a blow to the head, then panic from the parents, who staged the scene to protect their son. But there was no confession. No fingerprints on the murder weapon. No conclusive DNA. Only shadows. And silence. In 2008, there was a stunning announcement. A new DNA test on JonBenet's clothing Revealed unknown male DNA. It didn't match John, or Patsy, or Burke, or anyone in the FBI database. The Boulder District Attorney issued a letter, formally clearing the Ramseys of all suspicion. But many experts were skeptical. Some said the DNA could have come from the clothing manufacturer. A factory worker, perhaps. Contamination wasn't ruled out. Others argued, if the DNA wasn't from the killer, then who did it? The mystery only deepened. As the case dragged on, the media went wild. Tabloids printed wild accusations. TV specials speculated endlessly. Patsy and John were portrayed as cold, calculating, even evil. But they never confessed. Patsy passed away in 2006 from cancer. John remarried and rarely speaks publicly. And Burke, silent for 2 decades, gave a strange, smiling interview in 2016. That left viewers even more confused. Was he nervous? Or hiding something? The internet exploded with renewed interest. But no new answers. JonBenet's case is not just about a murder. It's about failure on every level. Police mishandled the scene. Investigators clashed. The public rushed to judgment. And a child's story was lost in noise and suspicion. But beneath it all was a little girl who never had a chance to grow up. Her story reminds us that justice is not guaranteed, that truth can be buried beneath money, media, and mistakes. Nearly 30 years have passed. The Ramsey house has new owners. The ransom note? Long gone. The case? Still officially open. No arrests. No resolution. No peace. But people still ask, who killed JonBenet? Was it someone in the house? Someone the family knew? Or a stranger who slipped through the cracks? One day we may find out. Until then, her name remains a haunting reminder of a question that never found its answer. Thank you for watching. If you want more deep dives into the world's most mysterious crimes, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts below. And remember, some cases go cold, but they're never forgotten. She was called the People's Princess, a woman who redefined royalty, loved by millions, feared by some, and then she was gone. On the night of August 31st, 1997, in the Ponte El Alma tunnel in Paris, Princess Diana died in a car crash. The official story spread fast. Speeding driver, paparazzi chase, no seatbelt, a tragic accident. But for many, something didn't add up. Why did the ambulance take over 90 minutes to get her to a hospital just a few miles away? Why were none of the surveillance cameras in the tunnel working that night? And why did Diana write a letter just months before her death saying, "My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure and serious head injury"? Was this just paranoia? Or was it a warning? Let's go back to the final day of Diana's life, August 30th, 1997. Paris. Diana arrived in Paris with Dodi Al-Fayed, her companion and rumored fiancé. They were staying at the Ritz Hotel, owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, a billionaire businessman. The paparazzi had followed them for days, snapping photos at every move. They couldn't leave the hotel without being swarmed. That evening, the couple decided to escape. They'd dine at a private apartment owned by the Al-Fayed family, then return to Dodi's home away from the cameras. But they never made it. The escape plan. To throw off the press, they used a decoy vehicle at the front of the hotel. Meanwhile, Diana and Dodi slipped out the back, entering a black Mercedes-Benz S280, driven by Henri Paul, the hotel's deputy head of security. Also in the car, Trevor Rees-Jones, Dodi's bodyguard. He was the only one wearing a seatbelt, and he would become the sole survivor. The car sped off into the Paris night, followed closely by a swarm of paparazzi on motorcycles. At 12:23 a.m., the car entered the Ponte El Alma tunnel. Seconds later, it crashed. The impact was brutal. The car slammed into the 13th pillar of the tunnel at high speed. The front was crushed. The scene catastrophic. Dodi and Henri Paul were killed instantly. Diana was still alive but critically injured. She would die hours later in the hospital. News of Diana's accident spread like wildfire. And when her death was confirmed, the world broke down. People flooded the streets. Flowers were stacked outside Buckingham Palace. Grown men wept on television. It felt like a queen had died, but one who was never officially crowned. Yet even as millions grieved, a different conversation began. What really happened in that tunnel? Let's start with the ambulance. The crash occurred at 12:23 a.m. Emergency responders arrived around 12:30 a.m. But Diana didn't reach the hospital until 2:06 a.m. That's more than an hour and a half for a drive that should have taken less than 10 minutes. French authorities said her injuries were so delicate, they needed to stabilize her at the scene. But some experts disagreed. They argued that in trauma cases like this, load and go is the standard. Get the patient to the hospital fast. Why the delay? And then there's the issue of the missing CCTV footage. The Pont de l'Alma tunnel had multiple traffic cameras, but officials claimed that none of them recorded the crash. Why? Were the cameras really off? Or was something withheld? The letter that changed everything. In October 2003, the Daily Mirror published a handwritten letter. It was from Diana, dated October 1996, less than a year before her death. In it, she wrote, "This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous. My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury." That letter was given to her former butler, Paul Burrell, who kept it for years. When asked why she wrote it, friends say Diana had become increasingly suspicious of the people around her. She had divorced Prince Charles. She was outspoken, independent, dating a Muslim man, and she had talked openly about landmines, poverty, HIV, and the failures of the royal family. Some believe she had become a threat. The conspiracies begin. Over the years, multiple theories have emerged. 1. The royal plot, that Diana's death was orchestrated by the royal family or intelligence services to protect the monarchy, to avoid scandal, to silence her. 2. The pregnancy theory, that Diana was pregnant with Dodi Al-Fayed's child, and that a Muslim child in the line of royal succession was unacceptable. 3. MI6 involvement. Former intelligence officers have claimed that the method used in Diana's crash closely resembles techniques used in targeted assassinations. A bright light, high speed, tunnel, no escape. Are these theories far-fetched? Maybe, but they refuse to disappear. Even Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, spent years demanding a full inquiry. He believed his son and Diana were murdered. He never accepted the official explanation. In 2004, the British government launched an official investigation. It was called Operation Paget, led by the Metropolitan Police. The goal? To explore all conspiracy theories surrounding Diana's death. The investigation took 3 years. It reviewed thousands of pages of evidence, interviewed hundreds of witnesses, and cost over £10 million. In the end, the conclusion was clear. No foul play. Just a tragic accident. The driver, Henri Paul, was found to be intoxicated, driving at over 100 kilometers per hour. Neither Diana nor Dodi wore seatbelts. And the paparazzi played a devastating role. But even with that conclusion, many weren't satisfied, because too much still didn't make sense. Why was Henri Paul, an experienced security officer, driving at such a reckless speed? Why did he have high levels of carbon monoxide in his blood? Why didn't the royal family react faster? Why did they remain so quiet? And why did Diana seem to know something was coming? A woman who knew too much? In her final interviews, Diana spoke of being isolated, cut off, targeted. She said, "There are people in this establishment who don't like me. They see me as a threat." She had left the royal family, but she hadn't gone quietly. She had the world's attention, and she was using it to speak about injustice, to criticize tradition, to shape her own legacy, and maybe That was too much for some to tolerate. A legacy that refuses to die. Today, more than 2 decades later, Diana remains one of the most beloved figures in modern history. Her face still appears on murals, magazines, and memorials. Her story has inspired films, documentaries, and books. Her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, continue to speak of her with reverence and pain. But her death is still an open wound. To this day, millions believe we don't know the full truth. That somewhere between the headlines and the reports, the real story was buried. And perhaps that was the point. The final question? So what really happened that night in Paris? Was it just a tragic car crash? A deadly mix of speed, chaos, and poor decisions? Or was it something more? A carefully orchestrated plan? A silencing? A cover-up? The truth may never fully come to light. But the questions remain. And they matter. Because the life of Princess Diana wasn't just about royalty. It was about humanity, compassion, and the courage to speak up, no matter the cost. And maybe that's exactly why she died. Thank you for watching. If this story made you think, if you believe the truth deserves to be heard, subscribe for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries and hidden history. We release new videos every week. And now, we want to hear from you. What do you believe? Was Princess Diana's death just a tragic accident? Or was it something darker? Let us know in the comments below. And until next time, stay curious, stay awake, and never stop asking questions. He was more than a rapper. He was a poet, a revolutionary voice, a cultural lightning rod. And then he was gone. September 7, 1996. Las Vegas. Tupac Shakur was in town to watch a Mike Tyson fight. He arrived with Suge Knight, CEO of Death Row Records. The two were business partners and targets. After the fight, around 8:30 p.m., Tupac and Suge got into a scuffle in the lobby of the MGM Grand Hotel. Security footage captured the scene. Tupac was seen punching Orlando Anderson, a member of a rival gang. It looked like just another brawl. But it wasn't. It was a spark. And 6 hours later, Tupac would be shot. The final ride. At around 11 p.m., Tupac and Suge were driving through Las Vegas. Tupac was in the front passenger seat. No body armor. No security detail behind them. Just a BMW 750iL rolling down Flamingo Road. Music. Laughter. A night that felt like a celebration. They stopped at a red light. Tupac leaned out the window, chatting with a car full of fans. Smiling, unaware of what was about to happen. Then, at 11:15 p.m., a white Cadillac pulled up beside them. 4 shots rang out, followed by more. A total of 13 rounds fired. Tupac was hit 4 times. Twice in the chest, once in the arm, and once in the thigh. Suge was grazed but survived. The gunman? Gone. Vanished into the night. The hospital and the silence. Tupac was rushed to University Medical Center of Southern Nevada. He underwent surgery. Lungs removed. Sedated. Hooked to machines. For 6 days, the world held its breath. Outside the hospital, fans lit candles. Singers held vigils. The media speculated, twisted, and theorized. On September 13th at 4:03 p.m., Tupac Shakur was pronounced dead. He was just 25 years old. The world mourned. But within hours, something strange happened. The police went quiet. The case stalled. And the question began. Why wasn't this solved? In the days after Tupac's death, the world asked the obvious question. Who killed him? The answer never came. And the silence that followed was louder than any gunshot. Let's look at the theories. Theory 1, the gang retaliation. Some said it was simple. Orlando Anderson, the man Tupac had fought hours before the shooting, was a member of the Southside Crips. Tupac was tied to the Bloods through Suge Knight and Death Row. Gang retaliation made sense. Quick, brutal, street justice. But here's the problem. Orlando Anderson was brought in for questioning, then let go. He was never charged. 2 years later, he was killed in another shooting. No confession. No closure. Theory 2. Suge Knight was the target. Others believed Tupac wasn't the intended victim. Suge Knight was controversial, aggressive, and had made a lot of enemies. Some insiders whispered the shooting was a hit on Suge, and Tupac just happened to be in the passenger seat. But Suge survived. Barely a scratch. And that raised eyebrows. How does someone survive a direct ambush with bullets flying, while the person sitting inches away takes 4 shots? Unless they weren't the real target, or unless someone knew where to aim and where not to. Theory 3. Death Row Records and betrayal. Then came a darker theory. Tupac was about to leave Death Row Records. He had finished the 3-album deal required by his contract, and he was starting his own label, Machiavelli Records. He wanted out. Out of the violence. Out of the control. Out from under Suge Knight. But Tupac was more than an artist. He was an empire. His image. His words. His future. That meant millions, possibly billions, on the line. Was it possible someone didn't want to let go? Was it possible they stopped him before he could walk away? Theory 4. The government did it. And finally, the most radical idea. That Tupac Shakur was targeted by the government. He was outspoken, influential, politically aware. His mother was a Black Panther. He wrote about systemic racism, police brutality, and revolution. He reached millions. And some say, that scared the wrong people. Could it be that Tupac was seen as a threat? A threat that needed to be removed? FBI files show that Tupac was under surveillance for years. His lyrics were dissected. His concerts monitored. So when he died, some asked, was it a warning to others? Or simply the end of a man who refused to be controlled? No arrests. No justice. No matter the theory, the fact remains. No one has ever been arrested for Tupac's murder. Not one person. Not one trial. Not even a serious suspect. Las Vegas police claimed a lack of cooperation. No witnesses. No evidence. But many close to Tupac say the real issue wasn't evidence. It was will. Some say the investigation was never taken seriously. Others believe it was intentionally sabotaged. And maybe that's why the questions have never stopped. For a murder that happened in a major U.S. city, in a car full of witnesses, on a crowded street, in front of tourists, traffic lights, and fans, it's almost impossible to believe no one saw anything. But that's what the official report says. No one talked. No one testified. No one was held accountable. Why? Some believe it was fear. Others say it was loyalty to the street code. No snitching. But a few believe it was something deeper. A warning. To keep quiet. Or disappear. And so, Tupac's murder became not just a crime, but a legend. And with that legend came another rumor. One that refuses to die. Is Tupac still alive? Yes. That theory exists. And it's louder than ever. People claim to have seen him. In Cuba. In Belize. In Serbia. Photos surface. Blurry. Mysterious. Some claim Tupac planned his own disappearance. That he knew the industry was coming for him. And that he faked his death to escape it all. Even the name of his last album, The Don Killuminati, The 7-Day Theory, was released just months after his death. Under the alias Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli, a 16th century philosopher who once wrote that faking your own death was a smart tactic in war. Coincidence? Or code? The album cover showed Tupac on a cross. A martyr. Bleeding. Looking at us with eyes wide open. He was sending a message. Or was he saying goodbye? The legacy of Tupac. Whether he died that night in Vegas or vanished into the shadows. One truth remains. Tupac Shakur never truly left. His music still charts. His quotes still circulate. His image still inspires. He spoke for the unheard. He challenged power. He exposed injustice. And for that, many believe he was punished. But maybe he also became something more. Not just an artist, but a symbol of rebellion, of truth, of the cost of speaking out. The final question. So now we ask, who killed Tupac? Was it a rival gang? A record label hit? A government operation? Or was it all just chaos? Maybe we'll never know. Maybe we were never meant to. But what we can do, is keep asking, keep listening, keep remembering. Because as long as we remember Tupac, as long as his voice echoes through speakers and generations, they can never truly silence him. Thank you for watching. If this story made you think, subscribe for more unsolved mysteries and hidden truths. We post new deep dive documentaries every week. And now, we want to hear from you. What do you believe happened to Tupac? Was it just street violence? Or was it something far more orchestrated? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, stay aware, stay awake, and never stop asking questions. Heath Ledger was only 28 years old, a rising star, a father, a man on the edge of something truly great. And then he was gone. January 22, 2008, New York City. It was a cold Tuesday afternoon. Heath had spent the morning resting in his Soho apartment. At around 3 p.m., his housekeeper entered his bedroom. She thought he was just sleeping, but something was wrong. Heath wasn't responding. She called his masseuse. Together they tried to wake him. They couldn't. The masseuse called 911, tried CPR. Still no response. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Heath Ledger was dead, lying face down on his bed, surrounded by 6 prescription pill bottles. The headlines followed fast. Joker actor found dead in apartment. Suspected overdose. Tragedy in Hollywood. But even in those early hours, the story didn't sit right with everyone. The rising star, Heath Ledger, was more than a pretty face, more than a teen heartthrob. He was ambitious, thoughtful, uncomfortable with fame but addicted to the art. From 10 Things I Hate About You to A Knight's Tale, he climbed quickly, but always searched for something deeper. In Brokeback Mountain, he stunned critics and audiences alike. And then came The Dark Knight. His role as the Joker was transformative, terrifying, unforgettable. Heath didn't just play the part. He became it. He locked himself in hotel rooms, kept a journal, pushed himself to the edge. And when filming ended, many wondered if he had ever truly let go. The official cause. The New York Medical Examiner ruled it an accidental overdose. The toxicology report listed oxycodone, hydrocodone, diazepam, temazepam, alprazolam, and doxylamine, a deadly mix of painkillers, sleeping pills, and anti-anxiety meds. But no single dose was high enough to kill him. It was the combination that stopped his heart. His death, they said, was entirely accidental. No note, no foul play, no signs of suicide, just a tragic mix-up. But not everyone believed that, and some still don't. Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker is considered one of the greatest in cinematic history. But behind the accolades was a man unraveling. To prepare for the role, Heath isolated himself in a hotel room for over a month. He kept a journal, writing pages of disturbing thoughts, twisted jokes, and dark images. He studied voices, practiced laughter. He immersed himself in madness. That journal, later revealed by his father, ended with a chilling phrase, "Bye-bye." Some saw it as a theatrical flourish. Others saw it as a goodbye. Heath spoke openly about the toll the role had taken. In one interview he said, "Last week I probably slept an average of 2 hours a night. I couldn't stop thinking. My body was exhausted and my mind was still going." He battled insomnia. He used sleeping pills. Sometimes they worked. Sometimes they didn't. Friends said he was edgy. restless, on edge. And yet, he wasn't spiraling. He was focused. He was excited. He was working. In fact, he had just finished filming the Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. He was in talks for new projects. He had just seen early footage of The Dark Knight and he was proud of it. So if Heath wasn't depressed, wasn't suicidal, what happened? The medications. The toxicology report showed 6 medications in his system. All legal. All prescribed. But here's where things get strange. Heath didn't have one doctor. He had multiple. Different prescriptions from different countries. Some from the US. Some from Australia. No one seemed to know what the others had given him. And there was no single doctor coordinating his care. That raises a question. Was this a tragic accident? Or medical negligence? Why was no one held accountable? Why was no one even seriously questioned? The missing context. Some friends said Heath had been clean for months. Others said he'd been using medications to cope with stress and sleep deprivation. He had recently split from Michelle Williams, the mother of his daughter Matilda. He missed his child. He felt isolated. But he wasn't falling apart. He had plans. He had hope. He had momentum. And then suddenly he was found dead. No note. No final words. Just a cold apartment. A quiet room. And questions that still echo. The Joker role has always been different, dark, disturbing, demanding. But after Heath Ledger's death, people started asking, is the role cursed? Jack Nicholson, who played the Joker in 1989, reportedly warned Heath, be careful with this role. After Heath's passing, Nicholson was approached by paparazzi. He looked directly at them and said, I told him, whether it was superstition or hindsight. The warning hit differently. The Hollywood machine. Some believe Ledger was a victim of more than just pills. They say he was chewed up by a system that glorifies pain and punishes vulnerability. Heath had always expressed discomfort with fame. The attention. The pressure. He valued privacy. He craved authenticity. But in Hollywood, privacy is a myth. And authenticity doesn't sell tickets. After his death, Heath became a legend. A symbol. A marketing tool. The Dark Knight campaign leaned heavily on his performance. His face became posters. His voice echoed in trailers. The same system that drained him now sold him. Alternative theories. Online forums exploded with theories. Some say it was more than accidental. That someone wanted him quiet. He was rumored to be working on a documentary about drug use in Hollywood. Some say he had uncovered things he wasn't supposed to. Others believe it was simply medical neglect. That no one looked at the full picture. That no one cared enough to connect the dots. There was no autopsy conspiracy. No missing footage. But there was silence. And in that silence, people filled the void with suspicion. The legacy. What remains today is a legacy wrapped in brilliance and tragedy. Heath Ledger posthumously won an Oscar for his portrayal of the Joker. It was one of the most powerful performances ever captured on screen. But many believe he paid the ultimate price for it. His daughter, Matilda, was just 2 years old when he passed. She never got to know the man behind the myth. The artist behind the makeup. Heath once said in an interview, I feel like I'm wasting time if I repeat myself. I want to keep pushing things. He did. He pushed the limits of performance. He pushed the depth of emotion. And he pushed himself. Perhaps too far. So what really happened? Was Heath Ledger's death a tragic accident? A perfect storm of prescription pills and exhaustion? Or was it something deeper? Was it the weight of the Joker? The loneliness of fame? The cracks in the system that failed to protect him? The world may never know. But one thing is certain. Heath Ledger didn't just leave behind a role. He left behind a warning. A message, hidden between the laughter and the silence. And that message is still echoing today. If this story moved you, share it. Let the world remember Heath not just as the Joker, but as the man who gave everything for his art. And ask yourself, how many more brilliant voices will be lost before the world learns to listen? Paris, August 31st, 1997. Just past midnight, a black Mercedes-Benz speeds through the streets of the City of Light. Inside are 4 people: Princess Diana, her partner Dodi Fayed, bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, and driver Henri Paul. They're being followed, not by enemies, but by paparazzi. Motorcycles, cameras flashing, a chase through the dark tunnels of Paris. Then, impact. At 12:23 a.m., the car crashes into the 13th pillar of the Ponte El Alma tunnel. In seconds, everything changes. Inside the wreckage, Dodi is dead. Henri Paul is dead. Diana is critically injured, barely breathing. Only Trevor survives, though badly hurt. Paramedics arrive. They work in the darkness of the tunnel. 20 minutes pass. 30. At 2:06 a.m., Diana is pronounced dead at the Pitié-Salpêtrière hospital. She was 36 years old. The world wakes up to grief, shock, and confusion. How could the most famous woman on earth, beloved by millions, die like this? Was it just a tragic accident? The official story said yes. Henri Paul was drunk. He was speeding. They weren't wearing seatbelts. Chased by reckless photographers. Case closed. Or was it? Because the more people looked, the more questions began to surface. Things that didn't add up. First, Henri Paul. Initial tests showed he had alcohol in his blood, 3 times the legal limit. But friends, hotel staff, even security cameras said he didn't seem drunk at all. He walked straight. He spoke clearly. He laughed just hours before the crash. Some claimed the blood samples didn't even match his blood type. Was there a mix-up? Or something worse? Next, the missing footage. The Ponte El Alma tunnel had security cameras, but none of them captured the crash. According to French authorities, the cameras were either not working or not facing the right direction. Convenient? Or deliberate? And then there was Diana herself. Weeks before her death, she wrote a chilling note. In it, she said, "This particular phase of my life is the most dangerous. My husband is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury." She wrote that in 1995, 2 years before the crash. She believed someone wanted her gone. The public reacts. News broke across every continent. Crowds gathered at Buckingham Palace. Candles, flowers, tears, but also outrage. Why wasn't she protected? Why didn't she have proper royal security? Why did the royal family take so long to respond? And deeper still, why did so many feel like this wasn't just an accident? After Diana's death, the media frenzy exploded. But quietly beneath the headlines, people started asking darker questions. Because this wasn't just any woman. This was Princess Diana, the people's princess. And she had made powerful enemies. A royal problem. By 1997, Diana was no longer married to Prince Charles. But she was still very much in the public eye. She was dating Dodi Fayed, the son of billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed, a Muslim, a foreigner, and rumor had it Diana was pregnant. To some within the British establishment, this was scandalous. A future king's mother, with a child from a Muslim man? Unthinkable. To those obsessed with royal purity, Mohammed Al Fayed later claimed Diana and Dodi were planning to marry, that this union threatened the monarchy, and that's why they were killed. A staged accident, made to look like a drunk driving tragedy. It sounds outrageous, but then so do the facts. The missing seatbelts. Neither Diana nor Dodi were wearing seatbelts, but Diana always wore hers. Friends confirmed it. Bodyguards confirmed it. So why not that night? Could the belts have been tampered with? British investigators later said the seatbelts weren't working. But why weren't they fixed? Why were they ignored? Too many questions. Too few answers. Diana's fear of the establishment. In interviews, Diana often hinted at feeling unsafe. She spoke about being isolated, watched, undermined. She believed the royal family wanted to silence her. And when she began speaking about landmines, about politics, about being a mother on her own terms, she became more than a princess. She became a voice of change. And change threatens power. The Red Diary. One of the most persistent rumors involves a diary. According to insiders, Diana kept a red leather journal. In it, she detailed secrets, affairs, threats, names. After her death, the diary vanished. Never found. Never acknowledged. Where did it go? Who took it? And what was in it? That scared people so much? The role of intelligence agencies. Some believe the British intelligence agency, MI6, was involved. Former spies have claimed. They monitored Diana. They followed her. They had files on her movements. One retired agent even suggested the crash bore similarities to a technique used to induce accidents. Was this just talk? Or a glimpse into something much deeper? In the years that followed Diana's death, 2 major investigations were launched. One in France, one in the United Kingdom. Both concluded the same thing. It was a tragic accident, caused by a drunk driver, reckless paparazzi, and the failure to wear seatbelts. But not everyone was convinced. Operation Paget. In 2004, the British police opened Operation Paget, a 3-year, multi-million-pound inquiry into the conspiracy theories. They interviewed 300 witnesses. They reviewed 6,000 pages of evidence. The result? They concluded there was no conspiracy, no foul play, and that Diana was not pregnant. But Mohammed Al-Fayed refused to accept the findings. He believed the investigation was a cover-up, that the establishment was protecting itself. And many people agreed, because for all the evidence, there were still holes, still inconsistencies, still silence from those who mattered most. The royal family's reaction. In the immediate days after Diana's death, the royal family stayed quiet. Too quiet. They remained at Balmoral. They didn't speak publicly. They didn't lower the flag at Buckingham Palace. The people noticed. It felt cold, detached, like they were hiding something. Eventually, the Queen addressed the nation. But for many, the damage was done. The silence only fed the fire. What Diana left behind. Diana was more than a princess. She was a mother, a humanitarian, a woman who had walked through pain, and chose to heal others. Her death left a wound in the world, a wound that never fully healed. And the questions around her final night continue to echo. So what do we really know? Was it just a tragic accident? Or was it something darker? A warning? A message? A clean erasure of someone who spoke too much and loved too freely? We may never know. But what we do know is this. Diana's light didn't die in that tunnel. It lives on. In the lives she touched. The people she helped to. And the truth that refuses to stay buried. You've heard the facts. You've seen the cracks in the official story. Now we ask you. Was Diana's death an accident? Or was it something more? Tell us what you believe in the comments below. Because some truths deserve to be questioned. And some questions should never be silenced. What if your last known moment was caught on camera? Acting like you were being followed by something invisible? And what if that was the only clue? Before you were found dead in a place no one could explain? That's what happened to Elisa Lam. Her story has haunted the internet for over a decade. Not just because she died, but because no one can agree on how. Elisa Lam was a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, Canada. She loved books, fashion, and blogging about her thoughts. In January 2013, she decided to take a solo trip to California. A break from her studies. A search for inspiration and adventure. She visited San Diego first, then took a train to Los Angeles. There she checked into a hotel downtown. That hotel was the Cecil Hotel. The Cecil wasn't exactly a 5-star destination. It had a dark reputation. Over the years, it had been home to suicides, overdoses, and even serial killers. But Elisa didn't know that. She booked a shared room to save money. After a few nights, her roommates complained about her odd behavior. So the hotel moved her to a private room. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. On February 1, 2013, Elisa was reported missing. Police searched the hotel. They found nothing. But then they looked at the elevator footage. And what they found shocked the world. The video, taken on January 31st, shows Elisa inside an elevator. She steps in, presses multiple buttons, then waits. But something's wrong. She peeks out into the hallway. Like she's scared. She quickly hides in the corner, then jumps out, makes strange hand gestures. Like she's talking to someone who isn't there. Then she vanishes. The footage went viral. Millions watched and rewatched it. Some said she was having a mental breakdown. Others believed she was possessed. Some were sure someone else was there, but edited out of the footage. But the biggest question remained. Where was Elisa Lam? For 19 days, there were no answers. Then hotel guests began complaining. Their tap water tasted strange. It was discolored. Had a weird smell. Maintenance workers checked the water tanks on the roof. Inside one of the tanks, they found Elisa's body. She was naked. Her clothes were floating nearby. The hatch was closed, and no one could explain how she got there. When investigators arrived on the rooftop, they found the access door locked and alarmed. There was no sign of forced entry. To get to the water tanks, you'd have to pass through a secured area, climb a ladder, and lift a heavy metal lid. And somehow Elisa, who weighed just over 100 pounds, was found inside the tank with the lid closed shut again. Police were puzzled. Her phone was never recovered. There were no drugs or alcohol in her system. There were no signs of physical trauma. No suicide note. No clear cause of death. The autopsy ruled her death as accidental drowning. But almost no one believed it. Here's where things get darker. The Cecil Hotel isn't just any building. It has a past soaked in blood and mystery. In the 1980s, serial killer Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, lived on the 14th floor while committing his murders. Another killer, Jack Unterweger, also stayed there, while targeting sex workers. Guests have jumped to their deaths from the upper floors. Some say the hotel is cursed. Elisa's death only added to that legend. And then, people started noticing strange connections. Theory 1: murder. Some believe Elisa met someone in the hotel. Maybe a guest. Maybe an employee. They point to her behavior in the elevator, as if she was hiding. They say the elevator footage is clearly edited. There are gaps. The timestamp freezes. And 1 minute of footage appears missing. Did someone follow her to the roof? Force her into the tank? Cover their tracks? There was no surveillance camera near the tank. No witnesses. Theory 2: mental illness. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. She was on medication for prescriptions at the time. The coroner said she may have experienced a manic episode. That could explain the strange behavior in the elevator. Maybe she climbed to the roof herself, undressed due to confusion or hallucination, and fell into the tank. But even this raises a question. How did she lift the lid and then close it again from the inside? No one can explain that. Theory 3: the paranormal. Some say the elevator video looks like something out of a horror movie. People online noticed Elisa press buttons in a way that resembled an old Korean ghost ritual. The timing, the gestures, the idea that she was being chased by something invisible. Others believe the hotel is haunted. They say Elisa was cursed the moment she stepped inside. Of course, there's no proof, but it's a theory that won't go away. In the end, no theory has solved the mystery completely. The official story says it was an accident, a tragic case of untreated mental illness. But the internet doesn't agree. There are too many loose ends, too many strange coincidences. like the Lamb-Elisa tuberculosis test, which shares her name. It was being studied in Los Angeles just days after her death. Or the hotel's reputation as a magnet for darkness. Elisa Lam's story isn't just about one girl who died too young. It's about how one life, captured in a few minutes of elevator footage, can echo across the world. It's about the way truth can hide in plain sight and still remain out of reach. It's about how a hotel can hold secrets and how the internet can keep a mystery alive forever. So now it's your turn. What do you think happened to Elisa Lam? Was it a tragic accident, a murder covered up, or something beyond explanation? Let us know what you believe, because this story isn't over yet. August 4, 1962. A quiet Saturday evening in Brentwood, Los Angeles. Inside a modest Spanish-style home at 12305 Fifth Helena Drive, Marilyn Monroe was alone. She had spent the day talking on the phone, meeting her psychiatrist and taking long naps. To the outside world it seemed like any other day. But this would be her last. At 8 p.m. she spoke with Joe DiMaggio's son on the phone. At 8:30, she reportedly chatted with her friend Peter Lawford. He said she sounded off, tired, detached, almost drugged. By 10 p.m., she had vanished from contact. No more calls. No more signs of life. At 3:30 a.m., her housekeeper, Eunice Murray, noticed a light under Marilyn's door. She knocked. No answer. She called Marilyn's psychiatrist, Dr. Ralph Greenson, who arrived minutes later. He broke the window. Inside the room, Marilyn Monroe was lying nude on the bed, face down, a phone in her hand. Empty pill bottles scattered around her. Silent. Still. She was only 36. The official story. The coroner's report called it probable suicide due to an overdose of barbiturates. No signs of foul play. No signs of struggle. But almost immediately, questions began to surface. Why didn't anyone call emergency services right away? Why was the body moved before police arrived? Why were certain documents missing? And perhaps most disturbing, why did so many people report completely different versions of that night? The conflicting timelines. Some witnesses said Marilyn died around midnight. Others insisted she was alive at 3 a.m. Still others claim her body was already cold before the doctor arrived. One LAPD officer said the scene looked staged. Clean. Too clean. Others said the position of her body didn't match that of a typical overdose. No vomit. No physical distress. And strangest of all, there were no pills found in her stomach. If she had swallowed dozens of barbiturates, they should have still been there. That raises a chilling possibility. Were the pills injected or forced into her another way? The missing evidence. There was no suicide note. No final words. No recorded goodbye. But there were journals, letters, phone records. All gone. Vanished within hours of her death. Some say the FBI took them. Others point to the Kennedy family. And some believe it was the studio system itself, cleaning up a scandal that could have shaken the entire country. Marilyn Monroe was more than a movie star. She was a cultural icon, a symbol of beauty, fame, and desire. But behind the glamorous smile was a woman burdened with secrets. And some of those secrets may have involved the most powerful men in America. The Kennedy connection. Marilyn was romantically linked to President John F. Kennedy, and, according to several sources, also to his brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. The famous Happy Birthday, Mr. President performance at Madison Square Garden in May 1962 wasn't just flirtatious. It was a warning, a public whisper of a private affair. And it terrified the White House. According to FBI records, Marilyn had begun writing in a red diary, a place where she supposedly detailed her conversations with both Kennedys, about Cuba, about nuclear weapons, about things she should never have known. If that diary existed, it's never been found. but many believe its contents were enough to bring down an administration. And that's where the conspiracy deepens. Was she a threat? Some believe Marilyn was becoming unstable, not because of drugs, but because of what she knew. They say she was planning to go public, hold a press conference, expose her affairs with both JFK and RFK, and reveal political secrets whispered in pillow talk. That kind of exposure wasn't just scandalous, it was dangerous. Former CIA officer E. Howard Hunt, in later interviews, hinted that Monroe's death was cleaned up to protect national interests. Mob figures like Sam Giancana were also allegedly involved. Some claim Monroe had ties to both the mafia and political elite, making her a liability to everyone. And when you're a liability to both the government and organized crime, you don't last long. The last visitors. Several reports claim that Robert Kennedy was in Los Angeles the night Marilyn died, that he visited her, that they argued. Neighbors reported hearing shouting. A helicopter was spotted overhead late at night, unusual for that quiet neighborhood. One witness even said she saw men in suits leaving the property shortly before police arrived. But none of this was ever officially confirmed, and those who spoke up were quickly discredited or disappeared. Media blackout. What makes Monroe's case even more suspicious is how quickly the media stopped asking questions. Within days, headlines shifted from mystery to tragedy. The narrative became, depressed actress ends her life. Case closed. But behind the scenes, reporters whispered about missing files, changed timelines, inconsistent testimonies. No one wanted to push too hard, because when the names involved are Kennedy, Hoover, and the mob, you tread carefully, very carefully. After her death, Marilyn Monroe became immortal. She wasn't just remembered. She was mythologized. The platinum hair, the red lips, the breathy voice, and now the tragic ending. Hollywood mourned her, but it also moved on. Studios pushed new stars. Papers recycled old gossip. And Marilyn's truth was quietly buried with her. A woman silenced. Marilyn spent her life being controlled. By studios, by men, by a system that sold her image but ignored her voice. She was branded a dumb blonde. But she was anything but dumb. She read philosophy, wrote poetry, challenged directors, fought for better roles. And she wasn't afraid to love powerfully, even recklessly. But when she got too close to the wrong truths, her light was extinguished. Was it suicide? Was it an accident? Or was it something darker? What we still don't know. There are so many unanswered questions. Why was the timeline of her death so inconsistent? Why were the pill bottles empty, yet her stomach showed no sign of ingestion? Why did the LAPD not question key figures more aggressively? And what happened to the alleged red diary? Even the autopsy was incomplete. Her internal organs, vital for toxicology, were destroyed or lost. How does that happen in the most high-profile death of the decade? Unless someone wanted it to happen. The woman behind the icon. We remember the legend, but rarely the person. Marilyn Monroe was born Norma Jean. She came from poverty. She faced abuse. She struggled with mental health her entire life. She wanted to be taken seriously. As an actress, as a woman, as a human being. But the world only saw the image, the smile, the sex symbol. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Why her death still haunts us. Marilyn's death was more than a tabloid story. It was a mirror, showing us how fame consumes, how power corrupts, and how truth gets buried. It reminded us that the higher you rise in public love, the more dangerous your fall can be in private silence. Because in the end, Marilyn wasn't just a victim of pills or secrets. She was a victim of the very system that built her up, then abandoned her. Final reflection. Over 60 years have passed, and we're still asking the same question. Who killed Marilyn Monroe? Maybe it was no one. Maybe it was everyone. Maybe it was the world itself. Too cruel, Too demanding. Too blind to the woman behind the icon. All we know is this. She deserved answers. She deserved peace. And maybe, just maybe, she deserves truth. Even now. June 25, 2009. A quiet mansion in Los Angeles. Behind its locked gates, the king of pop lies motionless in bed. Paramedics rush in, but it's too late. Michael Jackson, the most famous man on earth, is gone. But what really happened that night? Was it a tragic accident? Or something far more sinister? Tonight, we dive deep into the mystery behind the death that shook the world. Michael Jackson wasn't just a performer. He was the face of an era. From the moonwalk to sold-out stadiums, he stood above the rest. But on the morning of June 25, 2009, the world awoke to silence. Michael Jackson had died. 50 years old. Gone. Just like that. The official story? A sudden cardiac arrest brought on by prescription drugs. But that explanation didn't sit right with everyone. There were too many questions. Too many contradictions. And too much money at stake. To understand what really happened, we have to go back to the night before everything unraveled. June 24th. The Staples Center in Los Angeles was buzzing. Michael was there rehearsing, moving, singing, getting ready for his comeback tour. This is it. 50 shows in London. A return to glory. A redemption arc. He looked good. Tired, maybe, but determined. He danced. He smiled. He hugged his team and told them, "We're gonna change the world." But when he returned home that night, something shifted. He couldn't sleep. He hadn't been able to for a long time. Years even. And on that night, like so many before it, he turned to his doctor. Dr. Conrad Murray. Handpicked. Paid $150,000 a month. But not by Michael. By AEG Live, the concert promoter. That night, Murray gave Michael a series of sedatives. Valium. Lorazepam. Midazolam. But none of them worked. Michael remained wide awake. By 10:40 in the morning, Murray made a decision that would change everything. He administered 25 milligrams of propofol, a hospital anesthetic, not a sleep aid, not even close. No heart monitor, no oxygen tank, no nurse on standby. And then, according to Murray's own testimony, he stepped out of the room. When he returned, Michael wasn't breathing. Instead of calling 911, he called Michael's bodyguard, security, staff. It would take nearly 20 minutes before someone dialed emergency services. By then it was too late. Michael Jackson was unresponsive. Paramedics worked for nearly an hour. But nothing brought him back. At 2:26 p.m., the king of pop was pronounced dead at UCLA Medical Center. The world stopped turning. But the questions had only begun. The investigation began almost immediately. The world demanded answers. So did the fans. So did the family. How could Michael Jackson, one of the most protected celebrities on earth, die in his own home from a drug used in surgery? All eyes turned to one man, Dr. Conrad Murray, the physician who had been by Michael's side in his final months, the man who administered the fatal dose of propofol, and the man who didn't call 911 until it was far too late. In 2011, after 2 years of headlines, rumors, and endless speculation, Dr. Murray stood trial for involuntary manslaughter. The prosecution painted a clear picture. Murray had acted recklessly. He gave a dangerous drug in an unmonitored setting. And when things went wrong, he delayed calling for help out of fear for his own reputation. The jury agreed. Murray was found guilty. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served just 2. But even with the verdict, the story didn't end. In fact, it only grew more complicated. Many believed that Murray wasn't the real villain, that he was just the final piece in a much larger, darker puzzle. Because Michael Jackson wasn't just a musician. He was a business, a billion-dollar brand. And in the years before his death, his finances were in trouble. Massive debt, lawsuits, mounting pressure to perform. The This Is It tour wasn't just a comeback. It was a lifeline. If the tour failed, Michael could lose everything. And AEG Live, the company funding the concerts, stood to lose millions. So they hired Murray, a doctor willing to do whatever it took to keep Michael going. But when Michael died, something strange happened. Instead of collapsing, his estate exploded in value. Sales of his music skyrocketed. New deals were signed. Merchandise, films, posthumous albums. In the first year alone, Michael Jackson's estate made over $275 million. And perhaps the most important asset of all? His share in the Sony/ATV music catalog, a massive collection of publishing rights, including songs by the Beatles, Elvis Presley, and Taylor Swift. That catalog was worth hundreds of millions. And Michael had fought for years to keep control of it. But after his death, control quietly shifted. Sony eventually bought back full ownership. Was that just good business? Or something more? Michael had long suspected he was being watched, manipulated, controlled. In one speech he said, "The history books are lies. The media is manipulation. They want to control what you see, what you think. And they don't care about the truth." He often spoke about powerful forces in the music industry. He called out record labels, accused executives of racism and exploitation. He believed there were people who didn't want him to succeed independently. So when he died, under mysterious circumstances, just weeks before massive financial comeback, some couldn't help but ask, was this really just about sleep? Or was Michael Jackson silenced before he could rise again? As the world searched for answers, those closest to Michael remembered something chilling. In the final weeks before his death, he didn't seem like himself. He was thinner, more withdrawn, sometimes paranoid, and sometimes heartbreakingly honest. He told people he didn't feel safe. He said there were people watching him, controlling him, waiting for him to break. One dancer from the This Is It tour recalled, "He would shake. He looked confused. He said things like, 'They're trying to kill me.'" And that wasn't the first time he had said it. In multiple interviews, Michael hinted at threats. He said people wanted his catalog, that he was being used, that the people around him didn't really care about his well-being. Even his children in later years would suggest that something wasn't right. His daughter Paris once said, "Everyone in the family knows. It was not just an overdose. And yet, no one has ever been held responsible beyond one man." Dr. Conrad Murray. Was Michael simply pushed too hard? Overmedicated? Or was there more to the story? There's another mystery, one that continues to haunt fans. The surveillance footage from Michael's house. The cameras in the hallway. The bedroom. The entrance. The final 24 hours of his life should have been fully documented. But somehow, the tapes were gone. Security said they had technical problems. Files were missing. No explanation was ever made public. How does that happen? In the home of one of the most famous people on the planet? It's questions like these that keep the conspiracy theories alive. And while many of them may be exaggerated or even false, they reflect a deeper truth. Michael Jackson died surrounded by mystery. And that mystery has never gone away. In the years since his passing, his legacy has only grown. New generations discover his music, his videos, his message. But at the same time, his life remains a cautionary tale. Of fame, of pressure, of control, of what happens when a person becomes bigger than the system that created them. Michael Jackson wanted to be more than a pop star. He wanted to be free. Free from contracts. Free from expectation. Free to create without fear. But in the end, he may have paid the price for that dream. So we are left with this. Was it an overdose? Or was it a message? Was he a victim of poor decisions? Or a target of powerful interests? Was it simply a tragedy? Or a carefully managed ending? We may never know the full truth. And maybe that's the point. Maybe some stories are meant to stay unfinished, unanswered, unresolved. But if we've learned anything from Michael Jackson, it's that truth always finds a way to rise. Just like a beat. Just like a song. Just like a legend. Thank you for watching. If this story made you feel something, don't forget to subscribe for more true crime and celebrity mysteries. We publish new deep dives every week. And now, we want to hear from you. What do you think happened to Michael Jackson? Was it really just a tragic accident? Or was it something more? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and stay awake. Because sometimes, the truth is hiding in plain sight.